My name is Brandon Saunders, and my presentation is on U.S. prison overcrowding. America has more people in prisons and jails, 2.2 million, than any other country in the world. Cattell 2007, page 289. Here's a statistic on the international rates of incarceration. As you can see, the United States has one of the highest, or the highest. The problem. In the United States, there is a major problem with prison overcrowding, the situation of having too many prisoners confined in a prison and or jail at one time. This has stemmed from several different factors like underfunding in jails and prisons, over-policing and targeting the poor minority communities, policy change, stricter sentencing, and could policy change and reform be the solution to this problem? Why it's a problem. Overcrowded prisons lead to a multitude of problems like violence among prisoners, a change in mindset, and not only doing the opposite of rehabilitation, but turning some of these prisoners into career criminals with the mindset change. In the article, The Wages of Prison Overcrowding by Craig Hanley, it's described how when nonviolent offenders are sent to these overcrowded maximum security prisons, they must interact with much more serious offenders, and thus there's a switch in their psychology, causing them to have a mentality change. The phenomena of double-celling prisoners, having two inmates share a cell intended for one person, has evidence to support this claim. How does this affect you? If you cannot rely on your justice system to properly serve justice and rehabilitate, then why is there a justice system at all? American people should not have to live in fear of the system that's supposed to protect them. Some say this isn't a problem at all. The prison overcrowding rate isn't concerning to some because there's a direct link in crime rates dropping in the U.S. at the same time of the boom in prison overcrowding. Farrell describes how in the United States there has one of the lowest crime rates out of all of the advanced countries like North America, Europe, and Australasia. But this could also be caused by advancements in technology. Advancements in cars, homes, security have all played their part. Most of the crime drop has come from the simple fact it's harder to commit crime in this modern age we live in, not necessarily because the incarceration rate is so high. The solution. How do we fix a problem that's been seated for so long in our governmental system? Not only solutions seem to be reformed within our system. In states like California, changes like this have already started to happen. To solve the prison overcrowding in America, there needs to be a prison or policy reform. The three-judge panel that has been convened to assess whether the overcrowding in California's prisons was primarily caused of the inability to deliver a constitutional level of mental health and medical care. No other state has had experienced overcrowding in its prisons by as much for as long as California. Declaring that the state cannot perform proper mental health care for many of these inmates has been a leading cause for this reform system to be put in play. Here's a graphic showing the incarceration rate in California and how it drops when the reform was put in place. As you can see, there was a significant drop in incarceration rate by the same time as the reform was released. Getting these people the proper help and medical attention they needed served them better than letting them serve out a sentence in a cell. The facts. The state's prisons has operated at around 200% of design capacity for at least 11 years. Prisoners were crammed into every available space. They filled the gymnasiums with over 50 inmates and were required to share a single toilet. The overcrowding created gridlock in virtually all of the CDCR's programs. These programs set in place to help the reform process by providing things like education, treatment, and rehabilitation services. From the quote above, you can conclude conditions for these prisoners were less than optimal. So how are they able to grow and learn from the actions they put them there? It would only be building resentment for said system or a worsening mental state from neglect. Here's a picture of one of the United States prisons and how overcrowded it is. If there isn't a change in this reality, many who have just made a mistake or there for a reason not necessarily meriting these conditions. In theory, there could be so many more options for these inmates to where they could go be functioning members of society again if they received the help they needed. Conclusion. So could policy change and prison reform really be a solution? A quote, recommending that California should embrace comprehensive reform of its sentencing laws and corrections systems in order to address its ever increasing prison population and prison budget to resolve many problems that have beset the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. 16. Much have been accomplished since that publication. This has been recognized as a feasible solution by scholars to the problem, but there needs to be a bigger push for it to see the light of day. This has already impacted so many Americans for generations. If something isn't done, America will face this crisis for many more generations to come. Here are my references.